Most interesting thing I discovered this year is that economic growth is constrained by a society's ability to pursue interesting goals, which is very different than most other definitions that I've heard from economic growth, or going way back to my training as an economist, where economic growth was some sort of function of technology and technological innovation, which of course is true. The problem with that is, in a Deutschian way, it's not a good explanation, right? If I say that economic growth is driven by technology, well, then I have to define what technology is, and I kind of get into this rabbit hole of, well, why does, Spain not have the kind of economic growth like Silicon Valley? Because in principle, both countries have, they have technology. So why is this technology better than that technology? And so it's not a good explanation. So then people like Elon Musk would say, well, economic growth is eventually or fundamentally driven by the Kardashev scale of a society. So how much energy can you harness? And maybe you can even let them get away with, well, how much does it cost for a unit of energy to be harnessed? But that's not a good explanation either, because you have Russia, which has a lot of energy, and you have Silicon Valley or Switzerland, which actually don't have a lot of energy, and then still one has much more growth than the other. So I think eventually I came across my favorite scientist is Rick Sutton, because of his ability to explain in a very Occam's razor type way what intelligence is. And I think intelligence is the ultimate driver of growth, which is something also that we've heard recently, let's say Elon Musk talk about. But what does that mean? Of course, intelligence, North Korea has intelligence, China has intelligence, Switzerland has intelligence, everybody has intelligence. So and there's clearly a difference between economic growth in Switzerland, China, North Korea, and Silicon Valley. So I think eventually I come to the conclusion, and this is inspired by Sutton and his oak architecture, his new sort of era of experience white paper. Links are in the show notes. And what this reading of his white paper and listening to his presentations, where I came at is that in the end, what matters is that we define interesting goals. Now, of course, you might say, okay, what is an interesting goal, right? And here we are again, everybody can formulate goals, but I think this is a little bit more subtle, because interesting goals are goals that have, and this is not my view of it, or my definition, if you will, an interesting goal is a goal that is building on top of the ability to harness energy and harness compute in interesting ways. And interesting means you're able to make money, you're able to add value to society, and you can follow the P times Q or P divided by Q, it doesn't matter, PQ formula that we use here at Orange Capital Partners. It just means that P is the value you create for society, and Q is the value that you harness for yourself, and that P is better be 10x the Q. So if you can define goals that can leverage compute in a Richard Sutton, in a bitter lesson type way, so we have a general application of compute that can be harnessed through general models, and you can then create value for society that is 10x, at least 10x, if not more, from what you can harness as a company. I think that's an interesting goal. And the ability to formulate such goals, so for example, the self-driving technology of Tesla is definitely going into that direction. It's going to create massive amounts of value for society. Whether Tesla can actually harness a lot of it, that's still up in the air, right? Because we have competition, regulatory barriers, things along those lines. But in principle, it's fair to say that if we have, let's just say 10 trillion miles driven per year globally, at $1 per mile, that's $10 trillion. Let's say at 50 cents per mile, if we take it globally, that's still $5 trillion. And if Tesla can harness at least 10% of that, $500 billion, then that is massive amounts of value created for Tesla on an annual basis. So that's sort of the way we see the world evolve as Tesla is concerned, but we want to keep this episode general. So interesting goals, again, are goals that can be, that can harness energy and compute to the extent that value can be created that is, very large for society. We've spoken about AI data centers before. I think that's a very important detail, in a sense that it might sound utopian for some, and maybe it's far-fetched and all that, but what's interesting about this is that we have finally found a money-making opportunity for space. Like, space has always been sort of the realm of government, the realm of large-scale, maybe defense type stuff, satellites, all that. And, some of it was commercial, although it wasn't really commercial. Satellite TV is, in my opinion, a niche product. And then Starlink comes along, and Starlink is on the verge of becoming a big money-making opportunity. And I think based on that experience, Musk thinks that he can go further and create a network of AI satellites that can be used for training AI compute and therefore create intelligence. Now, intelligence is ubiquitous. And if you don't think that as a human race, or at least in the advanced economies of this world, if you don't think that intelligence is the absolute driver of everything, just imagine an intelligence brownout. Imagine all the models collapse and we don't have access to, you don't have access to your favorite LLM model. You don't have access to the self-driving technology of Tesla. You don't have access to all kinds of AIs that are all over us. And you will see how dumbed down we would feel and how uninspiring our lives would become very quickly. So we're already riding a massive wave of intelligence, and it's only going to get more extreme. So the ability to harness energy through space and translate it into intelligence is a massive money-making opportunity, because we have abundant energy in space. We also don't have the NIMBY problem, which is one of the biggest issues for harnessing energy here on Earth, whether it's nuclear or solar, which are the two only viable technologies that can scale to terawatts very quickly. So those two technologies both are prone to blockages by NIMBY, blockages by the oil and gas lobby, and also actually are commercially difficult to monetize, just because there is a limited amount of space. We don't have that issue in space, so therefore that is a massive technology. So I want to end it here, because I think this is an open conversation now. What are interesting goals? What does economic value mean? How do we invest? I think for us, we are interested in economic value driven by compute in space technologies, such as AI data centers in space. But I think it's an evolving idea, and it's also a very interesting principle. It's a principle. It's not a law, and it's not an idea. It's a bit more than an idea, and it's not as hard as a law. It's a principle. It's something that we can't prove. It's something that we can't give you a mathematical formula or anything like that. But that's what the principle is there for. It's there to base our thinking on it. And I think we're going to go forward with this and pursue our mission to generate wealth by investing in fundamentally new concepts and engineering practices with large impact.
Again, it's about agency and not about intelligence. Intelligence is key, like I said. Imagine a brownout. Imagine no access to intelligence. You'd be lost, but that's not where the money's going to be made. You need agency, like building data centers in space. You need bold, risk-taking agency. And this applies not just to companies, but also to people. The next generation and the generations afterwards, they need to be trained in agency. They need to take action. They need to be able to execute against an abundance of intelligence and energy. That's where the wealth is going to be created. That's where capital is going to be invested. And that's how you will succeed as an individual. Thank you.